The year is 2008. You're glued to Cerebi. Wait, I've already done this bit. Garganacl is stupid, man. We just have the same problem again. So, a Pokemon exists now with 100 base hit points, 130 defense, and 90 special defense. Somehow, it has a 100 attack. Like, you're going to be surprised by the damage this thing directly does. So what if it has no speed? It's a tank. It's going to get outsped by anything. So, yeah, 45 special attack. It's not using any special attacks. So, all of the stats are just disgustingly optimized. But that's not all. Pokemon cannot be status. But that's not all. It also takes half damage from Ghost-type Pokemon. I get it for the theme. Salt circles and ghosts and purifying and all that stuff. But why? A Pokemon that can't have a status condition is ridiculous. So what we saw with Golden Go is that the Pokemon is immune to status moves, but it can still get status through like secondary effects. Garganacl, it can still eat a status move that can like reduce its stats, but it just cannot be status. So there's no toxic stalling, one of the tankiest Pokemon in the game. But that's not all. It gets a move, Salt Cure. This is an exclusive move that does 1/8 of the opponent's hit points every turn. And you think, oh, that kind of sounds familiar. It's like Infestation. You know, you tag it with them, it wears off after a couple turns. It doesn't wear off! And that's not all. It does bonus damage to Steel and Water-type Pokemon. So something like Toxapex that's water takes a quarter of its health. Steel-type Pokemon that want to stall out, that are also immune to poison, they get destroyed by the Garganacl too, and it gets recovered. What is this? What is this Pokemon, dude? Like, what? It just doesn't make any sense how this is allowed in the game now. And that's why you see it everywhere. And they all have Ghost Terra type to counter each other's body press. Because what else are you going to do with a Pokemon that has 100 hit points, 130 defense, that also gets a stat boosting move? It gets to Iron Defense. It gets to make sure that if the opponent has all physical Pokemon left, it wins the game. Because it's going to melt any tanky or stally Pokemon through the Salt Cure, and it's going to one-shot anything that can take the body press. Which is why you're going to find a million Garganacl mirror matches, and then they're both going Ghost, and then body press isn't hitting anything, so you're just Salt Curing recovering for 20 years because it's so tanky. It can also have leftovers. It can have all kind of items. It's not okay. There's also a few other things you can do with the Garganacl. I ran into this, and it worked. It was terrifying, man. It blocked me in because I did like against tanky Pokemon. This is the anti-tank, but also Golden Go. But also Golden Go is the anti-tank Pokemon. But also, Golden Go is an anti-tank Pokemon, and again, you can see that in its non-status design. Golden Go can turn into a sweep, Garganacl can just block your opponent from ever winning, so Garganacl will also sweep. But if you go up against a tank Pokemon that, you know, has a body press, has Toxic, you just block them in. And then if you go Terra Ghost, your Curse does the other effect, where you lose half your health, and then they lose a quarter of their health every turn, and then you can also just Protect Stall with, like, leftovers, and they're eventually just going to go away. And there's no switching out the Curse because you get blocked in. So, yeah, and then it recovers forever. And if you can't touch it, that's a thing. I honestly don't know the EVs the person was running since you can't check battle teams anymore, which is kind of lame. Maybe if it was more balanced. Maybe it was something like this. I don't know. This is also a viable EV spread for this Garganacl. You can just run Protect behind the Salt Cure. So forget about the body press. Protect with the leftovers. So now you're actually like getting that extra little bit of healing inside of your, you know, Salt Cures and your recovers and your Iron Defenses to where the opponent really has no options with dealing. And now you're kind of stalling out, just waiting a very long time. Longer if the opponent has their own leftovers. But Salt Cure does magical damage. Like, you're going to hit someone with Salt Cure and you're like, why is my tank doing a 5th or even a 6th of their health extra on a 40 base power move? Stab Rock with 100 attack uninvested just hits a little harder than it feels like it should. Now let's say you're running more tanks, because Garganacl is like a mandatory tank, but there's also other power creep tanks from other generations. Blissey is still just the best special defense tank in the game, so maybe that wants the leftovers because it has such fat hit points. What other items do you want to run? Now, my experience kind of tells me, like, Garganacl wants the leftovers maybe more than any other Pokemon on your team. That gets into some damage numbers we're going to be looking at in a bit as well. It can still run all kinds of weird stuff. Rocky Helmet. Now, Rocky Helmet, I would say goes on a Fissure moveset, because you can also get rid of this and put in the Fissure. That way, if you're going up against a Ghost Garganacl mirror match, then you can throw down the Fissure onto the opposing Garganacl. So that way you actually have a way of killing the thing. Also, there's just tons of Pokemon out there. We have Dondozo, which is also running like Rest Talk Fissure. We just have Pokemon that are too fat to KO, so Fissure has appeared everywhere in the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet meta, which means you need a Fissure for yourself. Can also just go the anti-Garganacl, because it's on every team, and go like Flying, and I don't even know, man. This is just the messiest stuff we've ever seen. But you can still Salt Cure anything, so it's like, oh, but you're immune by Levitate and Flying. Who cares? Salt Cure's busted. And if they have a Focus Sash or something, if they make contact, Rocky Helmet breaks that or finishes them off, and then Fissure still is effectively a one-hit KO. So you got those options. For like other tanky, body pressy Garganacl, you might want to run the Ganlon Berry or the Apricot Berry, and that's where like things start breaking down. So do you end up at 1/4? If you do, you really want like the Ganlon into a Recover, into an Iron Defense, into a Recover to now be immortal in situations where you might otherwise get KO'd. Same thing on the Apricot Berry. The only thing keeping this from being the best Pokemon ever made is that there's no Amnesia. There's no Calm Mind. There's no way of boosting your special defense. So the Apricot Berry, if that procs from like a super effective hit or just a very powerful special attack, maybe a Dynamax boosted attack on the turn you're recovering, well, now you just salvage the game. And then the opponent has really extra nothing to do against you. This Pokemon might be the only reason why we do not have the Key and Moringa Berries in the game at this time. So keep an eye out for when the Moringa Berry becomes available, because that's going to be outrageous. And then I'm wondering if like that's where you do want the Fissure in, because then you don't get immune by stuff. I don't know what the Terra type is at that point. Game's ugly. And then you might have noticed a Poison Terra type here. So like this isn't a direct moveset. This just kind of shows some of the other tech, other things that the Garganacl wants to run. I was thinking about some other items. Like you can kind of scroll down and see what's going on. There is a red card option I've theory crafted, where if you have the red card on Garganacl, then you can hold that up to a special attacker, recover, and if that forces in a physical attacker, you Iron Defense recover, and then you're just kind of like in a really good bullying position, and it might force a switch into, you know, a Salt Cure or something. The opponent's having a bad day. Now, this is where things get weird, because even with these ridiculous stats, Garganacl is so strong and so prevalent, it has single-handedly brought Breloom back into the game. But Breloom, that thing wants to Spore. However, it has a nasty Bullet Seed, and unfortunately, it's not even like, oh, well, at least Breloom counters the Garganacl, so it's fair. It just turns the entire matchup into a coin flip. So if you notice, I have Ghost here. Like, you have to Terra off the rock. If you've already Terrastalized, like, your Garganacl just loses to Breloom. Technician, Adamant, max speed, max attack, Breloom just gets away with it. And that's because of the low speed of Garganacl, but also the low speed of a lot of other Pokemon in the meta. And then, like, Breloom's fishing for spores and stuff elsewhere. It is pretty absurd. It can also run the Bulldoze. It's got some other moves that it wants to run. Different movesets, different items, substitute, etc. But look at this. Like, against the rock, we are taking way too much damage. Like, if you just, you know, eat 3 Bullet Seeds, recover, well, you eat 3 Bullet Seeds, recover, you eat 3 Bullet Seeds, and you lose. Like, there's no catching up to this unless you have an Iron Defense set. Which means you kind of have to, like, sack a Pokemon into the Breloom, but then as you're, like, the Garganacl is forced to Iron Defense, then Breloom switches into a special attacker, and likely it's going to be something like the Golden Go, and then again, Breloom, Golden Go Core into Garganacl matchups get super ugly and messy, but that's a lot of damage. And then if Breloom hits harder, it's even crazier. And if Breloom hits harder, it's even crazier. So even if you go Terra Ghost, the damage you're taking, like, if you eat a 5, you just get 2-shot, which means you can't switch into the Bullet Seed. You have to, like, switch into a Spore to get the safety in. But even then, like, you could just get unlucky and lose the matchup. And also, if you eat these Bullet Seeds, set up the Iron Defense, it's doing half damage, but then, like, crits can kind of get in and get ugly, or, like, high-end damage rolls could still, like, make the game a bit trickier. If Garganacl has taken any chip damage, it's also going to be in a pretty bad spot. Or the Breloom just, like, hits 2 on you, and you're just completely mega fine, and you can just set up the Iron Defense, recover, and win. There's also these positions where you just get 2 unlucky high roll 4-hit Bullet Seeds, and your Garganacl gets 2-shot. As maybe you're trying to do something else. You know, you want to use the Salt Cure on the Breloom at some point for the Focus Sash. Maybe you're trying to catch them on a switch, because Breloom kind of doesn't want to be here either, but if Breloom commits, it could just outspeed and 2-shot you. There's other things that Breloom can run. Now, I don't think Loaded Dice is good on the Breloom because it can run a lot of other things, but the meta is so Breloom favored on the damage. Choice Band. Like, it doesn't matter if this is a neutral hit. Breloom's damage has always been outrageously disgusting, but Breloom was always just bullied out by a lot of other things in the meta that got too common. Now, Breloom is just better than everything in the meta that's slower than it. So it's very necessary as a Pokemon. Doesn't even need to have the Choice Band. If it Terra Grass, like now it's just doing bonus damage, so it's extra rough. So sometimes these Garganacl Breloom matchups go sideways, and that's also why I'm like, what if you go Poison? Or maybe even the Flying, because now Flying is going to add a lot of weaknesses, which isn't good. So if they bring in something like a Rotom, well now your lowest stat on that special defense is hitting super effective hits. That's kind of bad. Other Pokemon can exploit that, or maybe they don't. I don't know. But like, yeah, if you can turn that into a resist on the Garganacl, then it's pretty nice. You always have the Salt Cure, so even if a Ghost-type move hits you neutral, well, now it's always resisted. And I thought the Poison was maybe kind of cool because it's going to turn a super effective hit on the Fighting type into a resist. I kind of said this in my Golden Go video, but like, the meta is changing every couple of minutes. And like throughout the course of battle and a team change, the meta's already like reset or something. It's just weird because, okay, we'll get to this point where it's like you need the Flying to stop the Ghost, to stop the thing, but then something else happens and then that Garganacl's weaker, so you just go back to like the standard Garganacl that's like Body Press or Fissure plus Ghost again, because it just works against everything else. That's also just a problem with like team building and movesets when there's so much hacking in the game that accelerates the meta to where like it's impossible for legit players to keep up, even with the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet quality of life, from what I'm learning. And then since there's also so many people cheating with the duping glitch, yes, that's cheating. It's a fucking dupe. That's been considered cheating in every game ever. Even recent Pokemon games punishing and restricting this dupe, and also trying to patch the dupe in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet directly. Now, there was always another dupe, and there's going to be another patch and stuff, but yeah, it's cheating. So there's just so much outrageous cheating in the game. It's kind of making everything ugly, and then, like, every battle just kind of becomes the same again. But yeah, those are the things about Garganacl. Like, these 3 moves are just so way too good on this everything that's too good about the Pokemon that there's not really too many extra ideas or tech that you can or should run, and then you just kind of build your team around it with like Pokemon that don't need to Terrastalize, therefore you save it for the Garganacl, and this thing just holds down your team and locks out like 80% of all the Pokemon that exist, which is likely to be on your opponent's team. And if you do the right thing into the Breloom matchup, you shut out the kind of only thing that was making life a little difficult, and if you can like catch a Golden Goo, close enough, Golden Go switch with the Salt Cure, it's having a bad time. Like, Garganacl wrecks, dude. It's nasty. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.